Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite Creator. And I continue to pray that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And so, whatever time it is in your world, it's 3 minutes past 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Um, in 2 weeks, y'all's time come back to mine because I refuse to change my clocks. But hey, Miss Pearl, how are you? Um, the title of this particular video, and we have discussed suicides and depression and that type of thing in the past. Hey, Miss Chloe, how are you? But here in these last couple of weeks, a friend of mine, their an in-law committed suicide. They had went up there to Connecticut to visit said person, a gentleman, and whatever, and they'd got back home of over 1,000 miles of a journey. And, within a couple of days, received a notice that the father had committed suicide. Now, I can't, vouch for, I think they said shot himself, which there are a lot of those that happen, shoot themselves, seems to be an easy way, other than overdoses or whatever. Hangings are very popular. Now, I tried hanging. It's no fun. And the idea that the reason I put up the title that I did, that suicide is painful, is that in the original MASH movie, there's a song called "Suicide is Painless," because the doctor, the dentist, and they went through this whole thing in the movie about how he was going to commit suicide and all of this stuff, and he had had enough in the war and so forth. And so suicide is painless. It may comes in many changes. And that's the theme song for MASH, is suicide is painless, without the words. Hey Alexander, how you doing? Hi Michelle, how are you? It's always good to see you all. The subject might suck, but it's been on my mind now for the last several days ever since I found out about this. And I'm just like, there are a lot of people that go through, hey, Fox Spirit and The Way, how are you? Who sang that? The Stones? What? That suicide is painless? No, it was like part of the cast members and stuff of the movie. In the original movie with Donald Sutherland and Elliot Gould. And I can't remember the characters who played the dentist. But I am hoping that all of you are doing well. Because, I spent a good part of my life being depressed and wanting to commit suicide myself. Having tried suicide back when I was about 19 years old, 18 years old, 19 years old, hanging incident, I can assure you it's no fun because it failed. Okay. Circumstances. But the thing is that I tried it. And at the time, I was serious about, I don't want to be here anymore. I had just come out of the hospital from almost 3 weeks stay from severe head concussion. I had spent all of my money um, my hard-earned income tax money on a pickup truck, and it was totaled the same day that I purchased it. It was just one mess after another. I lost my job over it because I was in the hospital. I mean, it was a cascading of events that was not my fault. Was left on the side of the road almost for dead. Just a bunch of bad stuff. For example, I was underage. I was under 21, and they would not um, admit me into the hospital because I didn't have a parent. Well, they tracked my parents down after lying on a gurney in the hall for hours because they would not admit me even to the emergency room. My parents came and said, nah, whatever he did, he got himself into it. He can get himself out. And they left the hospital with me laying on a gurney in the hallway. So 9 hours later, after the accident and everything, they finally brought my granny that you've heard me talk about so many times. She came in. They drove out to Zephyr Hills and picked her up, brought her into town, and my granny signed me into the hospital. Her on Social Security or whatever, no insurance, no nothing. I was trying to get car insurance that day. It just all went. But in the hospital, I went. But her own daughter would not sign to get me into the hospital. She had to come in and do it herself. That's how much I love my grandmother. So, but because of all of these events afterwards, I'm depressed. I've had a severe head concussion. I've lost about everything. Don't know what to do. I'm having headaches. I can't stay awake. And so I go into a severe depression and decide one night after a half a bottle of wine, and they had placed me on Valium. Um, and so I did not know what alcohol and Valium would do. So a couple of hours later, I'm making a hangman's noose and go outside and tie it up to a basketball net thingy and go out early in the morning and decide I'm going to jump off this little box and kill myself. Well, the basketball net kept doing this springy thingy. So, that was like doing, doing when I jumped off my little box. And I was tiptoeing, and it was not at all like I thought hanging oneself was going to happen. Of course, I'm high on the wine. I'm probably have smoked something at that time. I'm like 18 years old ish, 19 maybe, less than 21 for sure. And I was still down in Tampa. And it was right after this incident that I moved up to Georgia. But it was a very traumatic time. And so the committing suicide I was serious. I was dead serious. It just didn't work out. For I'm grateful now, but for over the years, I can tell you I have contemplated suicide way too many times. So enough about myself, but about the situation. So whatever led this person to do this. Now let me just explain what I know of the family. Not that this led to it, but I'm sure to a degree it led to it. All right. So this man is divorced. His wife, with a child, is living with another woman. So she has decided that she is a lesbian, has been living in a lesbian relationship for several years. Perfectly fine, nothing outrageous. The mother had a child from the husband, and who is a very confused teenage gender as a boy. Okay. So, but doesn't know what he may be, she, whatever. So there is confusion there. So now, from the father's point of view, who is the one who committed suicide, if he's having a hard time with his life, he's looking back over things and goes, my wife is with another woman. Okay, this is 2020s. All right. All right. But now my boy doesn't want to be a boy and he's not sure who he is. So now, who am I, as a father figure? A mother is a lesbian. My son don't know what if he is a boy or what. What the hell? Bang! I'm out of here. Now that's a very truncated portion of the story, but to the person who is depressed, to the person who is going through the trouble and the quandary of I don't want to be here anymore. Why should you convince me to continue living when I'm the woman that I married is a lesbian and didn't kind of sort of tell me that. I mean, I'm not saying that that's who or the situation in his, I got to say, demented mind, because my mind was demented when I was contemplating suicide. Absolutely. So I can point the finger at other people, but I would rather just point it at myself because, you know, I had to be demented if all I did was, contemplate suicide all the time. And I mean, for years I went through this, okay? Lots of years of therapy. So finally convinced not to do it kind of thing, but then there were still years of therapy to get, to keep things on track. Haven't been to a therapy session in a long time or taken any of those kinds of meds, but to the point. And I haven't been depressed in a long time either, but I have chosen a different path. Now, so there are folks who commit suicide every day. It's a very sad and troubling thing. I have talked with folks. I am available. If somebody's thinking about committing suicide, I don't care what time of the day or night it is, you call me. And I've made myself available over the years as other folks made themselves available to me over the years, okay? So I just find it, a reciprocal thing. But the fact that this person, they went up to he went up to visit his father, and and whatever, and came home, got settled in, got a phone call that he had, murdered himself, and they had to go back up there for the funeral. Now the word is that he's been wanting something of his father's, and the relatives don't send anything. They send things that are like washed, and he wants something like that was dirty that you could still have the scent of the person on it, kind of thing. But anyway, there are a lot of issues, Lord have mercy, that are going to cascade down the line from this. The son is already having issues with trying to figure out what generational cis member, whatever. And I'm not trying to make a judgment, but they can't decide. He can't decide. So now the father commits suicide. Now, if you don't think that teenager is going to be, oh my God, you know, my father cashed out. What do I have to live for? What, is this impetus for me to keep on living? Or is this an impetus for me to just, I don't want nothing to do with this world either. I'm cashing out. And what does that do to the generations downhill from them? Because it's going to trickle down one way or the other. So that way, you, oh, y'all talking about, y'all have had similar, the red door. Yeah, 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 yeah. If you want to, there are words to the song "Suicide is Painless." Look it up on the internet. But they made the original MASH movie years before they came out um, with the series. And but it's, if you've never seen the money, if you've never seen the movie, it's a funny movie. But for those of us who have had mental health issues, I can't talk. It's time. We got 1 minute for a 20, and I'm kind of sort of ready. So it's good to share with y'all. And Chloe, it's good to see you. Michelle, Fox Spirit, that way. And Alex, if you're still up there. So suicide is very painful, and what if you get it wrong? Cheers, y'all. Now, I know that when your mind isn't stable, when your mind ain't right, it's hard to control those thoughts that just run off. And I saw a commercial today that was very interesting. And it was about folks with suicide kind of sort of issues. And it was like, so, they were these one-liners. So, just get over it. Um, you've got to work through it. And several other one-liners, and every one of them was true. Every single one-liner was true. You got to work through it. That you just, or you don't, you know. Um, and whatever it is, you got to get over it. Whatever is troubling you, you've got to master it. You've got to get stronger. It's all true. But to a person who is troubled, who is suicidal, sure enough, and you go, well, come on now. You got to be strong. You've got to work through this. You can do it. The person on the other end's going, you're full of shit. No, sorry. I'm at my wit's end. I have a gun to my head, and your words are meaningless to me. What? Now I say that because I've been there. I say that because I've talked this with other folks, and let me know how you might feel about this. There's outside activity tonight, and Duggar's going wacko again. He went nutso the other night though, and I saw him in the light of one of my um, solar yard lights, and he caught a relatively small to medium sized armadillo and killed that sucker. Killed it, shook it to death, and I was like, I wanted him to back off so I could shoot it, but he was pretty damn good about killing the thing. So chalk one up for Duggar for dead anyway, you know, Thank God I ain't killing chickens and cats and stuff. The armadillos dig up the yard and they're a pain in the katookies. And if he hadn't have killed it, I would have shot it if I could have got a clean shot. So, but anyway, um, back to the suicide thing. So, but with suicide, when you're in that mode of I can't take it, I don't see any way out of this. There are no solutions to what is happening, what may be about to happen. Just whatever the situation is for that individual. For example, when I was facing going to jail for a long time, when the helicopters busted me in my own backyard for growing weed, I just thought, "Holy crap! I can't take this. Oh no!" And so it worked out, but there was a 2 or 3 day period where my depression level dropped and I was facing, 20 years in prison and holy shit. And thank you, Jesus, it didn't work out that way. Um, but the time of the depression, with all of the things, oh my God, they raided my house. I'm on, this. I was on the Georgia news. They trapped me with a helicopter. They were going to shoot my ass with a high powered rifle. I mean, when all the things come, I was already poor. I was already having issues. I was already not in a really good mood. I was in a depressed mood to begin with. And then all the GBI and the helicopters and all that stuff. And so, the next couple of days, I was just like, oh man, screw this, you know? So, having been depressed before the fact, and then all of these other things that happen. So, the contemplation goes up and you're getting more serious now because you're in a shitload of trouble with the government and you're facing big time jail time. And I did not want to go back. I swore I would not go back to long term jail back from the time when I was in jail for the year in Florida. So, nope, I don't want to go to state prison. Nope, this ain't going to happen. Nope, you know. So, but my point is that all of those things, depending on what you're going through, I don't know what this gentleman's state of mind was beforehand. Now, I stated his family life. So, but a person who has lost their own self esteem, who doesn't seem to be able to find their way out of a situation. So, whether you loved your son or not, don't know. But that, the son went to visit the father a week before the incident, and now the father commits suicide. Now, what if the son is in this mixed up condition, which he is, the father in his mixed up condition is just like, I can't say this, but from my point of view and being a father, now I wouldn't think about this, but I can understand if my wife was a lesbian and divorced me to marry another woman. I know that would affect me. I don't think I'd want to kill myself over it, but if things are cumulative, right? So, oh my God, my wife left me for another woman. So I'm inadequate. This adds to the person's demeanor, which ain't demeaning very well, right? So the person who is depressed has this strike. And now my son, who doesn't know if he's a girl or a boy when he's a male, but he doesn't know, and he's, and so lays this trip on me, comes to see me, lays this trip on me, and I'm already freaking out about life in general. And that adds to my issue. You understand? My wife left me for another woman. My kid doesn't know if he's a boy or a girl when he's got a dingaling. And now I'm just, bam, I'm out of here. So there are a lot of other things that push people over the edge. But my point in this is this: these kinds of times aren't helping folk. All right. Women, I've known several women who have divorced their husbands to be with other women. I've known men who divorced their wives to be with other men. Okay, so in fact, a good friend of mine of, 60 years ish passed away the other day, and a confirmed gay man since the time he was 10. He was 72 or 3, and I'm 70, so, just a couple of years older than I. But Charles, Chucky Stanko, he passed on. So, but having known people like this all my life, literally since I was 8 or 9 years old, you know, um, because we knew the friends that owned the carnival. And so I grew up with Chucky, with Charles, with Chuck. Woodchuck, woodchuck. And anyway, so having known gay people, gay men, gay women, other friends, other family members, okay. So for me, it was more of a norm than not, because there were so many people that I knew that were very close in. Who else is on? I stopped to look in the chat room. I'm omnipotent. Hi, how are you? So, but anyway, so um, or your poor back. Oh, let's send out prayers for our backs, please. I've got a stick-on pad now that's not working very well. But anyway, so as I came out of my suicidal tendencies, I started asking myself, what if I had succeeded? Am I spiritually well enough to, like, um not do this, not commit suicide, that is? Am I stable enough to where, you know, um, now there's been a good at least 7, if not more, like 10 years ago that I came out of that. Fox, yes, it's selfish. It is. But here's the thing though, when you're in that mental spot, you ain't thinking about selfish. You're not thinking about who's going to find me with my brain splattered on the wall. You're not thinking in those terms. And that's my point. Having been in that mental state, having been in that crazy state of frustration to where it's like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And no, but what if I don't want to blow my brains up. I can't. have a gun because of my felony record, but so how do I kill myself? Well, I tried the hanging thing. Somebody coming in my house and finding me hanging from it'd be really easy to hang myself from right there. But to the but for them to come in and find my corpse hanging with my, shit on the floor and drool out my mouth and blood and whatever and flies, are you serious? But when you're in that state of depression where nothing else matters, when you just don't want to be here any longer, well, all kinds of people can say all kinds of things, but when those chemicals and those thought patterns and them neurons are firing in, I would say, in a low frequency, but at the same time it's hyper because you want out of this. You want out of here. You want out of the situation. You don't want to be here any longer. Selfishness is not, it is selfish, but the desperation is what's worse. You're so desperate for a change, desperate for another solution, desperate for sweet Jesus, how do I get out of this or fix it or whatever? And if you don't see it, and the desperation is so overwhelming, then you only see one way out. Okay, it's selfish, and it is. But having been in those, if I'd had a gun, I might have pulled the trigger kind of situations, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But there he goes again. But so the flight of the spirit in the desperate hours, and those hours or minutes before someone chooses to do it, their brain and their chemicals are in another spot. Now, with that said, let me take a quick, you know, when you're in that moment, it's not selfish because in a way, you're almost convinced yourself that if I'm not here anymore, I can't be part of the problem because I can't find a solution out, or I don't see a way around it, or I don't see how I can be a part of this, or whatever. It's the person's their lack of ability to be able to see out of the situation, whatever it is, to not want to be here for whatever reason. Well, come on now. Tomorrow is the first day of the rest of your life. Oh, bullshit. I'm sorry, but my depression says screw you. I can't handle this. Right this minute, I don't want to see tomorrow. I don't want to wait another fucking minute. I'm out of here. Do you understand me? And the desperation that overcomes the spirit. Now, let me have a 20. I have to space them out. There is an absolute desperation that there is no other way. It is not selfish, it is a good thing. Well, I'm glad I didn't do it. There's a few people that I know, I'm glad they didn't do it, but some of them are still living with medicines and therapies and because they still have the tendency to want to do it. I just don't have that tendency anymore, especially after the heart attack. I'm fighting every day to just, to stay alive, right? So, but this idea though but when people look at a suicidal situation, they have never had that desperate of a feeling. They've never been in the mindset of the person who has committed suicide. It doesn't make the suicide right. It doesn't make the person who was suicidal correct in the fact that they followed through. If anything, it takes a lot of guts to follow through on a suicide. I've looked at it over the years and thought, Ma, I'm sure glad I was a coward. Well, I don't want to wreck my truck. That's no, I don't want to have someone find me hanging from, because there'd been several people that I've known that found a parent or a sibling or a neighbor or somebody hanging somewhere. And I'm like, no, no. So in that, I always thought about I don't want someone to find me like that, even though I just did not want to be in this world. And so I found out that sleep and time, regardless, can change things. 2 days later, you can feel totally different. You can feel totally different 1 hour later. Somebody can call you on the phone. Somebody can stop by and see you if you're lonely and by yourself a lot, or something, right? Some event can happen if given time. Now, it may take a month, it may take a year, depending on whatever situation, but to the point though that sometimes it only takes a minute or whatever. So here we go in the universe. So I've often wondered also after my own, wanting to take care of my own demise, what does that do to my spirit on the other side? What kind of karma does my spirit have to pay for? How long does it have to pay for it? For example, well, I committed suicide. All right, well, now, in a way, I believe um, in the person's right to die, in that if you've got a medical illness or cancer and you know that you're about to die, that assisted suicide, and I don't mean necessarily Dr. Kevorkian, but there are ways that people can do their own demise. And I think if they're living in pain and having a lot of problems, that, you know, and they seriously don't want to suffer any longer, that should be a different choice and a matter of choice and a different kind of attitude, quote, about suicide. Um, but the folks who are depressed and have mental issues and mental um, defractions in their brain, where their brain is all fractured, because all the people that I've known who were in those types of situations, I myself, my brain was fractured. I couldn't put anything in a row. So Edgar Casey has said some interesting things about those folks who commit suicide and who cash out early. Um, Generally speaking, in the universe, it's not recommended. Now, there are, societies like the Japanese who, we always heard it in the movies as they committed Harry or Harikari, to where there's they even have a special knife. and they fall on their blade and take their life in for whatever manner of honor, at least so that they believe. So, but if your belief in that when you fall on your sword, that it is an honorable thing. So, your suicide, when you go to the other side, what's the karma like on that one? Versus somebody who, I'll just politely say, goes nuts and offs themselves. And what difference is it from that as if you fall on your sword? Okay, from a karmic standpoint. On the other side, God's looking at stuff going, well, he used a gun because you were just, you unfortunately you were just a little Looney Tunes there, Dave. And you just said you had enough and that's it. Now, Uncle Dave over here, your twin brother, he fell on his sword out of honor, not because he was depressed or whatever, but because of events and certain things. It's almost required that you fall on your sword. Okay. So you fall on your sword in honor, not because you're crazy and disgusting and your brain is fragmented. No, you do this on purpose for a reason, but you still killed yourself. You still took your own life, period. You still took over your death for whatever the honorable reason and left somebody else to clean up your mess, literally. So, what does that really mean from a karmic standpoint? I don't know the answer. Okay. I'm just like fielding some thoughts that having had, a near death experience with my heart attack, having had a near death experience several years ago on the river that I've talked about when I was 3 days on the river with no food or water. And here recently, there's been a section where the two spirits who are walking me out down through the woods keeps recurring to me for some reason. And I'm reliving this situation from the river in my present. The word is situation. And not that I'm in any kind of. My situation is I've had a heart attack. I've got a crap load of medicines that my body's trying to get used to. I'm way too fatigued. I sleep way more than I want to or feel the need to. Today I had an issue where my chest was hurting. I couldn't catch my breath. I wasn't scared, but I was like, "Oh, holy crap! Is this what it's like?" My blood pressure is way down. It was 96 over 55, with an 88 pulse rate. And I was kind of sort of freaking out, going, I don't know what this is, but it's creepy. And I want to see tomorrow. All the years I spent wishing I were dead, I'm wishing I'm still here tomorrow, that I don't die in my sleep and somebody, find me dead on the bed here. So, how situations change, right? But I changed my spiritual outlook years ago when I quit thinking about suicide. Like, well, yeah, well, I just don't want to be here. Yeah, well, okay, but if you commit suicide, what's this going to do to you? Uh, Not necessarily from a Catholic or Christian standpoint, am I going to go to hell? But is it just wrong to do? It's just wrong to cash out early. That's all. It ain't up to me to say, well, screw this, I'm out of here. Nope. because the creator, God, whatever, there you have a plan. And for you to just cash out early is cheating. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I mean, if you're suffering from cancer and your lifespan is like short anyway, and you just don't want to be on the machines or whatever anymore, I can understand it. Okay, I can. You don't want to suffer any longer, and because there really is no chance, then you should have the right to say, I want to leave now before it's already bad, before it gets worse. I want to go ahead and say, okie doke, bye y'all. And okay. But to, be sitting in a room and decide that, you can't stand the life anymore and life's treating you with boogers and you just end it. That is a totally different, in my humble opinion, karmic experience. Okay. But what does it mean on the other side? I don't know. Do you have to pay for it? You know, pay for checking out early. Well, I mean, it's like, an early withdrawal on your IRA, you know? Oop, we got one to dismiss here. Let me report. Oh, it shouldn't be held from review. It should be removed. Thank you very much. So, anyway, but when I started making the choices to be more spiritual through my Indian folks and the powwows and dancing and drumming and my own personal little, um, candlelight type middle of the night little meditations outside in the woods, up in the mountains, and doing little meditations in places that I'm thinking of now. And just being aware that there is, whether I can see it, smell it, touch it, or feel it, that there is some kind of other thing in the universe, that we are surrounded by energy. Now, in watching this program, it's probably been 2 weeks now, about the universe, and they were talking about stardust and all these different X-rays and all these different, waves that coming in from the. Hey, Amanda, how are you? That are coming in from the universe, and how some of them just pass right through us, and we don't even know, right? And that the astronauts, would see these little white trails through their eyes, and it was literally, photons, protons, or whatever from space going through the spaceship and going into their through their helmets or whatever, and literally kind of passing right through, right? And they could see them. And so then they started logging them and counting them and all this kind of stuff. So, yes, this stuff is bombarding us all the time, right? I've talked about the cosmic dust. And also, by the way, the big change that was supposed to happen in October, the big cosmic thing that was going to change us all, ain't happened yet. Just saying. Just saying. The promises that were made months ago about October. Now, October ain't done yet. but it is the 26th. So, oh, and by the way, you know, Fox, speaking of, your lower back, I'm going to therapy tomorrow on the 27th. Not tomorrow, like in the morning tomorrow, but the next day, for my lower back. Um, I wanted an MRI done. Um, After discussing it with my doctor, he'd agreed, but the insurance won't cover it until I get 6 weeks of physical therapy. So I'm going to physical therapy starting Thursday at 2:30 p.m. So we'll see how that works. But hey, Amanda, how are you? But so for things that are going on in the universe, they ain't happened yet. Just saying. But now from the suicide is painful thing, there are people that, the people that find the dead bodies are that affects them, whether it's a gunshot or whatever it is. Somebody's got to find you. Somebody's got to find that body. So um now I could die of a heart attack tonight, or it could have been this afternoon the way I felt. Not soliciting pity, by the way. It was just a very weird feeling this afternoon. And my blood pressure was so low. That it was kind of sort of scary situation for me being here at home alone. But anyway, but so for other folks, who are depressed and are in that mental state. And there are folks who are like, well, why didn't you say something? Or why didn't whatever? Um, Having been in those moments myself, there are times when you don't want anybody to know that's how you feel. Because they'll tell you the same thing. Oh, buck up, buddy. Oh, it'll get better. You know, you know, um, oh, face it, get over it, stand up, all the common things that are said. The bottom line is they're all true. You got to buck up to it. You got to go, wait. Now, on what I was going to talk about before, there have been times when I actually have wondered myself if there weren't evil somethings, spirits, I would say evil energies, in that I became uncontrolled in my desires to, I couldn't stop thinking about suicide. I couldn't stop thinking about dying. I couldn't stop. It was almost nonstop. And it's like, but I just don't want to be here. How am I going to pay my light bill? How am I going to pay my taxes? How am I going to eat next week? Hey, David Castle, how is anything going to happen? My family's left me. My son's left me. My daughter's left me. I've been abandoned by the rest of the family. Nobody, I have no friends, or what am I going to do? Now, when I had issues with my the surgeries on my neck, I've got out of the hospital. There was nobody here to take care of me. And it was, massive surgery, you know. So I stayed with other people and I, made other arrangements, but I still had to come home by myself. And so in those times of having had the surgery, having, oh, it's going to fix me, I'm going to be better, and then it didn't. And then having to have another surgery, And no money, out of work, not being able to get on any kind of disability. I mean, this is what I went through. But in that time, so I'm worthless because I can't do it. My bones aren't healed. I mean, a lot of stuff just, and I'm by myself. So to the person who is depressed and who is in these situations, and when you look at the circumstances, you go, well, I can see your point. It doesn't seem like there's any way out of this. But do you have to kill yourself? There may not be a solution right now, and I would sit here and agree with you. I don't know what the solution is. But killing yourself right now, just that's that, right? But if you wait until tomorrow, we might be able to come up with something, you know? If you wait till tomorrow or the next day, when a little bit of time has gone by, since you have if you discuss your issue with folks, are you hungry? Where somebody say, "Well, I got some extra canned goods." Okay. Well, I got my chickens. I got extra eggs. Here's a dozen eggs. Here's a way to feed you. Where before I was literally eating out of the dumpsters. Out behind the um, food stores long before it was popular, had figured out how to eat, by sitting at a fast food joint, especially with kids, because they never eat the whole thing, right? There's always portions of something left. So you would scout, and when they'd take their little box and you'd watch them and they'd put it in the garbage or whatever, you would just go by the garbage and open the up and pull out that chicken leg that had not been gnawed on, or there were always little packages of mashed potatoes or coleslaw or something, right? So you could find a meal, especially if you hawked around the right places. So, but from a depression standpoint, to think about, well, I don't know where my next meal is coming from, honestly. And I have been in those situations where there just wasn't shit to eat. Um, and like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I really don't. But so your belly's hungry, and the next day something just happens. Now, there were times when I had to go looking. I had to go to a place, and that's where I started listening to my spirit guide. Like, well, if you go behind this store on Wednesdays, they throw out produce and things. Okay. Well, if you go over here and blah blah blah, then if you go to this store over here, if you go to the Wendy's over here on Broad Street, or whatever it is, right? But you have to take the initiative. Okay. So at the moment that you're depressed, you don't have any food, there's a blah, blah, blah. I have no income. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm getting thrown out of my apartment. All these things were true for me, especially. So now what do you do? Well, tomorrow is our choices. Do you know what the choices are? No. But when you're in that decadent, fractured state of mind, you can't think about tomorrow. Tomorrow is not in your vocabulary because you don't want to see tomorrow. You don't want to have to try to face tomorrow. Tomorrow is not on your list of things that you want, but your mind is fractured. I can remember a couple of times where it was just like, no, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, like it's almost 2 o'clock. Wait, it's 2:02. Okay. So it's 2 o'clock here in the morning. I'm depressed. I don't know what to do. I'm so frazzled, dazzled. My daytime was bad. Whatever the last few days have been bad. I'm having a fractured bad moment, 2 in the morning, and I don't want to wait for the sunrise. I really don't. And so, but anyone on the outside looking in goes, but why not? You just don't. You just don't. The despair is so strong, you can't literally stand it another moment. It's inside of you. It's sort of like you're being shocked electrically, and you don't want, and I can't stand it. Now, there are those folks who are very calm, very cool and collected, and like, I've made up my mind, that's it. I don't want to, I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm going, they're out of here. Or they take pills and badoom. But whatever tips you over that point where you say, I am absolutely going to follow through with it, it's not a sane moment. Now, I'm sure that there are people who at the moment think they're sane because they've had enough of this life and they went out. And to it is a sane moment for them to make the choice. Okay. And you go, but that's crazy. I mean, their brains and their think, yeah, but you're not living in their moment. Now, I'm not trying to stand up for suicides, but I know how I have felt in more than 10 occasions in my lifetime of not wanting to be here. And there were hundreds, if not thousands, of other close encounters of the third kind than dealing with despair and suicide and not wanting to be here and being and feeling overwhelmed by nothing really when I've looked back over it. But at the time, it was everything at that moment, you know. But when you can't get over a single moment in time, like I'm just using it 2 o'clock in the morning because it is, but in times past, 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm fractured. I'm frustrated. I got to go to work in a couple of hours and I don't have gas money and I don't know what's going to happen. My job is threatened. Whatever it is that I just don't want to be here anymore, that I can't face not just another day, but another moment. Now, I would say if you've never had any types of moments like that, thank you, Jesus, and thank you to the universe, you've not experienced that. But if you have not experienced that, then you don't understand what people who have gone through those types of moments in their life feel like. You, if you've never had that despair, then you don't know. And so be careful of being critical, you know. There are people who go, well, they should have done this, or, there's all these resources. Yeah, but to a person whose brain is fractured, for whatever the reason it's fractured, they don't have control. I didn't have control. I'm so glad that my spirit guide stepped in and said, hey, Hawkeye, are you sure you really want to do that? I mean, do you really want to point your little truck at the bridge? Do you really want to put an end to this right now? Are you absolutely sure? And swerve away from the bridge. It's happened a couple of times. I practiced coming down the hill and aiming at the end of the bridge. Could never do it. Uh, Thank you, but could never do it. And that was before airbags. Um, so having felt that desperation and depression, I look at my friend and whose father has just committed suicide. You know what the child feels Like, why did he have to do that? I was just there visiting him. Now the child's in a now depressed, but even more depressed, confused because he is not sure if he's a he or a she or something in between. And and I don't mean to be disrespectful, that's the situation. So now this suicide has dropped down to the first generation, regardless of whether the son saw it or experienced it. Like, oh, I found dad, with his brain splattered or hanging in the closet or whatever. Okay, but that trauma was spared him. But the trauma of him just seeing his father coming back home and then having to make the trip back to Connecticut, and that, oh my God. So all of this extra stuff and the pain, the trauma, going through the of course the funerals and all of that. So what does it do to the child and any subsequent actions there or on that part? Then the cats and critters outside are being just absolutely scratching on the house and shit. I mean, making a lot of noise. Quit it! They listened. Oh my God. Yeah, as far as the evil thing, reading Amanda says, hang on, I just had the thought yesterday that most people only listen to reply, but not to understand. We talk, but we don't. We've forgotten to properly communicate, so people don't want or can't open up. It is a dark void that eats you up in a painful way. You've been there as well, eh, Amanda? It's a bad place. And the thing is that having been to that desperate place, that where it doesn't seem like no words or comfort. Now there are actions that um, I was talking with Robert V, and I said, years ago I didn't have my property taxes, the money, and I put a copy of what the sheriff's statement and so forth, and put it up on Facebook, and I just said, I don't have a clue as what I'm going to do about this. I'm on limited income, and I don't know what I'm going to do. The next thing, within a couple of days, I had people who had already paid my property tax for me, and the penalties and all the extra tax and whatever. And so, but at the time that I got it, I was so forlorn. I did not have a clue. So I just put it out there to the universe. I didn't know what, didn't know how, whatever. I just put it out there. And I'm so grateful that friends and neighbors and whoever, they came and without asking them, hey, I need money to pay for this. I just said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And some friends took care of it for me in such an unbelievable way. And I was nowhere near expecting. But the day that they posted it, the day that I copied it, the day that I put it on Facebook, the day that I just said, but here's the lesson, I had to give it up to the universe, but I had to let the universe know I was in trouble. Okay. So by just copying it on my copier and posting the picture on Facebook, the issue resolved itself without pushing, prodding, a hell of a lot of praying on my part. So, from a karmic standpoint, that could have been one that I said, I've had enough of this. I'm out of here, and popped a cap, and I wouldn't be here anymore. Going to lose my property, going to lose everything I've worked for over taxes. You know, here goes the damn government again. So I'm grateful I'm still here. I'm saddened that there are folks who reach these breaking points to where the only way out for them is to go ahead and commit the deed. There's a lot of that going on around now. I thought that it had kind of sort of calmed down there for a while, but apparently suicide has reared its evil, ugly head. And is it an evil spirit that connected with me? I will say that the lower you go, the lower entities might just like sort of, yeah, go ahead, Dave. Yeah, that's a good idea, Dave. Rather than finding positive outlets in the universe to say, no, that's a bad idea, Hawkeye. No, you shouldn't be doing that thing. You know, that the deeper you get into the depression, it's almost like the depression speaks to you and says, nah, it's okay. Now, is it archons? Is it energies from outer space? Is it evils from other dimensions? Maybe. I ain't going to discount it because there were times when I absolutely felt like I was possessed by something because I could not get out of the depression no matter how hard I wanted out of it. I couldn't get out of it no matter how I talked to, no matter what. And I absolutely felt like there was something else that was, it felt like, let's call it the depression. But was the depression actually a thing? Now, depression in and of itself is a thing because you're depressed. Like being in love is a thing, right? You can't really touch it, put your hands on it, whatever. But if you're in love, you're in love. You know it, you can feel it. There is the sharing that you know it. And when you're depressed and when you want to die, you can feel that too. Ooh, bless me. Oh, there's another one coming. Much love right back to you, Michelle. So, the suicide thing and the being depressed, it is an entity. Like love is a condition, so is the depression. So if you're so depressed enough that you're actually contemplating these, self harm and whatever, that in and of itself becomes a monster. Okay. And a lot of these monsters are similar in that people go down a particular depressive state of mind. They traveling down these stairs and they've been here and something's happened and down a step they go. And blah 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 and down another step they go. And whether it's their ego or their self-worth or family or finance, whatever it is, they're not going up that ladder. They're falling behind. They can feel it, you can sense it, you can smell it, you can see it. And when you're going downhill backwards and the brakes don't work, sometimes you feel like the only thing that you can do is fling yourself out of a moving vehicle at 90 miles an hour over a cliff because you don't want to crash in the car. You'd rather take your chances and jump out of the car. You know. So, in a way, suicide is similar in that life is that out of control vehicle with no brakes, out of control. Well, but then you have no brakes. And you feel that the only way of salvation, because you know you're going to crash, is to jump out that car and hope for the best. That's the suicide, right? So you have no other choice. And the desperation of the careening vehicle without brakes, because that's the desperation that you feel at those moments. The car is going to crash. I don't have any other choice. This is the only way out. And boom. So, having been there myself, it's a horrendous place to be. But for those people who just say, hey, buck up, buddy, get over it, you're right in what you say, but you're wrong in how you say it. Because you obviously don't understand that point of depression and despair where they are. Because if they could have bucked up, buddy, if they could just have gotten over it, they would have. For me, the people that told me to get over it, I if I could get over it, I wouldn't be depressed. Part of the reason that I'm depressed is because I can't get over it. Do you understand? Well, just get over it and move on. Okay, fine. But that's part of it. I'm trying, but I can't seem, for whatever reason, to move on, to get over it, where you seem to think it's so easy. I'm having trouble here. Can you understand that part? Well, just get over it. Just buck up. Just, you know. So I don't know what happened to this individual. He's already dead. So it's a little mute of a point to discuss it as far as what led him to pull the trigger. And I'm not trying to make light of this now, honestly not. Having been there to that point before myself and have knowing that my brain was fractured to the point where I allowed myself to want to do myself in. I get that. I really do. And there are a lot of folks out there that are going through that. And so when you hear me talking about my prayers, and when I'm thinking about folks out there in the universe, I am honestly thinking about people who are in those despair issues, times, frequencies. I'm always talking about try to find some joy in your life, go on an adventure, find your spiritual self. It ain't about a religion or who you have to worship or give money to or whatever. There are no clubs that you have to join. The universe is all around you and me all the time. And so if we can attract some positive energy towards us, that's a good thing. But there's negative energy that I know there are a lot of folks that like, well, you can attract that negative energy to you. I would kind of sort of agree that if all that you focus on, or if all that seems to be in your life is just negative energy, it almost seems like no matter what happens, if it weren't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Gloom, despair, and agony on me. You know that song. So, but in a way, it's true. I've had, lived through some negative times in my life, and it just seems like every time I turned around, something else negative was going on. And it just like, well, um, but I've also realized after having gone through those times that, you know, shaking your head and not making an issue of the situation, whether it be a flat tire or something, and that you just go, yeah, okay. And you get through it, and a couple days later, it's like, the other day I had a flat tire, and it really pissed me off and made me late for work. Blah, but I'm over it now, and blah blah blah, and okay. So somehow we muddle through, we get through flat tires on our life, and we get through things like people that we know. I found out the other day from my neighbor lady up the top of the driveway that a good friend of mine who worked in in kidney dialysis was in a bad accident and was killed just very recently. And I was like, damn, there goes another one, and a few years younger than me, but still, mid 60s. And, a nurse of many years and her talents in nephrology and taking care of patients and how many lives she was saved or at least, helped to live longer lives through dialysis and what she's known. And here she was killed in an auto accident. And it's like, well, there goes another one, a talented person, wasn't suicide, but there goes another one. Um, so there are suicides and there are accidents. Both are painful because we're losing people that we love. And despite what they may be feeling at the time of their demise, I'm hoping that Jan was smiling and profiling rather than being depressed. But she had moments of depression too. Um, and her and I, she had lost her husband, and her and I had discussed her losing her husband and so forth, and the trauma and the heartaches, and the fact how much she loved him, and I mean, and that's a very real thing. But that kind of thing can turn into a depression state, where folks never get over their loved one. And there's it wasn't a death, but it was a breakup of me and someone that I was very close to many years ago, and I still feel the pains of that because I really loved this person, but I knew from future sight and things that it was not going to work, and it was not going to work. And I'd had signs from the creator and just a lot of like, you know you can't go on with this. And it's tough. It was really tough decision, very tough, but it had to be done on my part. And so I'm alone when I could have had somebody that dearly loved me, but I realized that our paths were not in the same, and that they were not going to be able to keep up with my new shaman kind of devotion kind of thought, and I was not going to be able to keep up with their needs. And there was an age difference there. She was younger than I was. I did not solicit her, she solicited me. But to the point, though, it was very depressing to have to give up the love of my life and the spontaneity. We did lots of things together, and kayaking and canoeing and camping, and I haven't been able to find anybody to do that kind of thing that was just natural between us. And so I know that I lost the love of my life in that respect because, when you find somebody that you can click with, especially in nature and in those types of things, and with animals and just, and then when the good Lord shows you future things, be careful what you wish for those of you who wish to do forward viewing. Now, I realized that my forward viewing came very true. As much as I personally wished to reject it, I had to go through it. I was depressed, all those things. But had I not done it, I don't know how ugly it would have been. But it was fixing to be really ugly. And I had to create the separation. So, but it was a death nonetheless. And to this day, I long for that feeling. I long for the feeling that I had with this woman. And it was just natural between us. And ain't had nothing anywhere near it since then. And it's been going on 30 years now, but happy 20. It's after, right? What time is it? Oh my God, missed it by 4. But so here's the thing, there are all kinds of reasons of love and not being able to, for me, I knew I was giving up the love of my life, that I had to make this separation because of future signs and what the Great Spirit had showed me. And I needed it for my shaman experience. And it was, as much as I wanted to cling to it at all costs, I was clinging to something that was, bare thread, right? Bad rope. And that no amount of fixing was going to fix it. So um, I had to realize that law, the suicidal effort, just jumping out of a moving vehicle at 90 miles an hour to save yourself. But it wasn't just to save me, it was to save the other person as well, because it saved both of us a bunch of heartache in trying to keep something that obviously was failing. All right. So, but after all these years, though, I foresaw where I'm at now, meaning that I was going to be living by myself. And as much as I would like to have you know, a honey to cuddle with, I don't have that. I thought I was going to be sitting on the porch with my soulmate and we were going to be living together happily ever after. And my soulmate now is Duggar. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but he just don't snuggle the same way. So, but with that said, one one could be filled with despair. A person could be filled with, you know, hatred or malice or whatever because they had to give up the things, and they could be mad at the universe. And I just, at this point, I just say, well, it turned out the way that I was foreseen by me, and I just have to accept it. I've had to accept it. 10 years ago, I was torn up about it. But now it's just like, these are the choice had to be made. It is part of the universe. I've made the choice to clean up my spirit. I've made the choices to change my diet, thank goodness, for my heart's sake, and etc. Made the choice to pay for my land and homestead this place. So where other people are still, floundering with mortgages and interest rates, and I mean, they're retired and they're still paying mortgages. I'm like, screw that. My place is paid for. So, the choices that I made, some of them were good choices, some of them not so good. But regardless of whether the choices were good or bad, I'm here now and having to live the results of the choices that I make. So now at 70, what kind of choices am I going to make in the future? Because what repercussions or, whatever, because it will create waves in the future. As if I do them or don't do them, if I act or don't react, if I participate in the universe or if I don't, like having this conversation about suicides and so forth. The idea that, there are some folks that just won't discuss it. There are a lot of folks who are closed up inside their little drums or their little closets or their little rooms or whatever they're closed up in, and that, that the depression cycle thing has got them fractured. I can see pieces of glass and mirror when I think of fracture. And you've seen a movie or a TV program where they show the broken mirrors and the face in it, that fractured feeling, and that you just can't get the pieces together. And so desperation is the winner. Now I have thought about it over the years, and I try not to give it thought about different entities or spirits or evil energies or whatever. But the body chemistry, when endorphins, when you haven't laughed in a while, when it seems like joy is gone from your life, when Joy and Heather and June and Dave have all moved down the block, that's a joke. But the joy in your life when Hummingbird isn't there, or that playful um, porcupine isn't pawing at Brother Bear to play with the log. If you have heard some of the the card readings that I've done, so if this hasn't happened in life, and depression is the only thing that you see every day, that creates its own energy. I realize it now. Look now, I realized that there were times when I created my own energy, but it also felt like there was something driving me to create the negative forces. So I had to give up my spirit later on, and I had to give my life to Jesus. I mean, I did turn to the Bible, and I did turn to what I knew spiritually at that time. And then I realized that the answers were more just in the universe. So when I say that I pray every single day, that every single one of you will continue to learn how to accept and reject the energy, the wisdom, the blessings, and everything from the universe, I mean it. Because every day is a new way to learn how to, accept the universe and reject the negative. And every day's a new set of instructions. Every day's a now there are some days that are similar to others, and that's how we learn from experience. But to allow ourselves to get caught up in the mayhem and all of the fractured brain fragments that it takes for someone to commit suicide, because a level-headed person just ain't going to do it unless it's hattie catty. Okay, and I still don't get that, but it makes more sense than just getting rid of yourself. So with that said, I've been here long enough. It's been an hour and 35 minutes almost. I love you all. I do. This is a terrible subject, and I hope I've done it enough justice. But having lived through enough near misses myself, I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you, your friends, your family, and those folks you come in contact with, will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings that really are out there in the universe. And if there's somebody out there that you might feel is fractured, help them, get them help, and offer them those words of encouragement like, yes, you've got to struggle through this, but I'll help you. Yes, you have to put those things behind you, but we can help you. There are people who can help. And I may not understand exactly how you feel, but I have felt similar myself. So, in that, I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings still floating around out there in the universe. And in that law of three, which I do think is important to you and me, I continue to pray that each and every day, that each and every one of you will continue to learn to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings in the universe. Okay, now with that said, to all those alien folks and all them folks that made all them promises that October was going to be the day when the aliens were going to come and the cosmic energies were all going to trigger us. You only got a couple of days left, y'all. Just saying. So I love you. Have a good morning tomorrow. Um, if you know someone who needs to talk to somebody, pass it along. I'll help and talk with anybody that needs to get out of a suicidal situation. We need to, help those folks and understand in a way that a lot of folks, well, they, they could have got help and they kind of just pass it off. Well, they didn't have to blow their brains out, you know, that's their way of dismissing the condition. And for those folks, for those of us who have felt that depressed, who have felt the evil in the universe trying to persuade us that to kill ourselves it sounds like a good idea, I will continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to accept, and I'm going to throw an extra one in there for all those folks who are having problems or seem to be having problems. Take a deep breath. There are a lot of cliches, but tomorrow really is another day. And if you end it today, you don't know what tomorrow will bring. That's a my own little silly cliche, but it's the truth. If you end it now because of you're depressed, you don't know what tomorrow will bring, good or bad. So anyway, much love to you right back that way. David Castle, Michelle as always. Who else is here and might still be hanging on? I love you all. Thank you. Miss Amanda, it's good to see you. Um, I do. I hope everything's going all right with anybody and everybody. Omnipotent, if you're still there. Fox Spirit, if you're still around. Mossy Man, if you might still be there. So I love you. I'm tired. I'm out of drink and my butt hurts. Oh, Pearl, Miss Pearl, and to you as well. Always. So my prayers go out to you. Y'all stay safe. And honestly, if you know somebody that needs to have a personal chat, send them my way if you don't know anybody else or whatever. So Just don't leave them hanging. I hate it when I hear about another suicide. Just, it's taken me several days to have this conversation with you now because I've had to mull it over and just kind of go through it. So, but anyway, Michelle, I love you all, and y'all be safe, okay? And until next time, cheers. And y'all aliens, you only got a couple more days to make October right now. That's all there is to it. Y'all promised again. So, but that's that. So until next time, y'all, cheers and be safe, okay? Good night, good morning.